Right, welcome back to the channel. We're carrying on with our VVT controller and boxing it up and finding a home for it and making little bits for 3D printed bits for the screen and what have you. And you'll see, hopefully you'll enjoy this one. This has been a real learning curve for me, and I'm still very much on the thin end of this enormous wedge of electronics and quite enjoying it, to be honest. So I hope you are too, and I hope you enjoy this video. Right, here then, part two of our Arduino inspired VVT controller. I've got the Arduino and all the bits we need sort of down into a little module here now. So we've got the 5 volt voltage regulator there with the 12 volt supply coming in there. I've got the actual MOSFET board there because it's all one board. It's got all the resistors and capacitors it needs to control the MOSFETs, as one or two of you have mentioned, and I've got it all connected up to some connectors. So my plan now, I originally was going to 3D print a box for this, but one of you mentioned it'd probably be a good idea to put this in a metal box, so for the shielding, so I agree with that. So I've made a cardboard template out of bare box material to make up a box. So that's what we're going to do next, is fabricate a little steel box for that, find a home for that, and then the idea is to make this as a separate unit which we can have inside somewhere, and we've yet to work out a better way of fixing this Hall sensor in there somewhere. So let's crack on with making that box first. Righto, okay, what to use for that? Yes, tyres. I have tyres now ready for the wheel, so these came the other day, so they're ready to take the tyre shop when I get a chance. Right then, so I've got some thicker steel over here, which is probably a bit of an overkill for making a little box like that. But I do have some leftover roofing sheet type stuff, which will probably be perfect for this, be easy enough to work with. And I think that'll do us. Let's have a go with that first. There we go. Okay, that'll make our base, which that will sit in kind of like so. Right, so we've got some little nuts now we can hold all this together with. Lovely. Right, that's all nice and secure. Yes, that's basically what we're after. Let's do some gluing. Right. Where have you come out of? Okay, we'll repair the rear. That's come out with pin 2. Very naughty of it. Alright, let's see what we can do about this little blighter. Probably the easiest thing to do is tin the end of it and stick it straight in the number 2 slot there. Hope it stays in there. Maybe use a bit of hot glue to keep it in there. That'll do us. That'll do us. Yes. Lovely. Right, okay, so that's our board in place and our fixings glued in place, hopefully there to stay. Rightio, there it is, all with a bit of paint on it, all its glory. It's not very attractive thing, I've got to admit, with the plugs on it, but they've got a job to do, and that's as simple as that. Now the next challenge is to find a home for it. Now I was thinking of a home in here somewhere, but I don't think that's going to be very attractive, and being prone to heat and noise and all sorts of vibrations from the engine bay, possibly not the best place for it. So I need to rethink where I'm going to put it, find somewhere up under the dashboard somewhere, I think. So in here, I've got a couple of options, possibly up behind there somewhere. So that'll be nicely out of the way in there. I probably tie it into the top of that panel there somehow, and then out the way. Or up underneath on this side somewhere. So I'll have a ponder about that and come back to you. Well, I think we got a home for it, just tucked up underneath the passenger side footwell there, and then I can run some more cables through the bulkhead there somewhere, ready to take it into the engine bay. And then I'm thinking making a little 3D printed thing for the little screen to go just in here somewhere. So that's my plan. Let's see what we can do with that. And on this side, that means we could bring another through the bulkhead here for the cables. So we need cables for pick up the live common earth through it all. Try and just stop an earth loop if I can, and the VVT, and of course the Hall sensor pickup here, so that they can also run along with its cables down here and up in through a hole there. And then our little screen unit, we can, I reckon, find a home for that in there somewhere. More pondering, but possibly in there. I'm sure we could find some home for it. I don't really want to be cutting holes in the dashboard any more than I need to. Possibly I could find a new home for those and repurpose that bit there. That's a possibility. Got to do some thinking. Okay, I've been doing some 3D modelling again with my favourite 3D modelling program called Tinkercad, which really is 3D modelling for dummies, which suits me, and made this. Now the idea of this is it will fit in there, so I've got my Hall sensor there, shorten the cable and just put a connector straight on it. Those will fit together, sort of one-handed. Like so, and I can glue those in place when I'm happy with the fit of it. And this now has a little bit of movement on it, in and out. So when I'm happy with where I want it, I can then glue that into place. So that'll give me movement for this being closer or further away from the magnet. And my plan is to fit this on the front of the engine where there's a plastic cover goes over the cams in the front. Drill a little hole in the side so that'll fit snugly into there, and hopefully will look okay. So I'll show you what I mean now as we go to the garage. So the idea is this will fit sort of here, obviously poking in a bit, and I'll drill a hole through there, and that will line up very nicely with the wheel and magnet underneath. There we go. I intend to do something about that as well to locate the magnet better. Once that's in place and bolted into place, that will fit on there quite nicely, I think. And I've got a bit of shielding cable here already going through the bulkhead, so I can route that around and make a connector for that, so that'll just all fit on the front there somewhere and run down the side here. So that should be tidy enough. Also got coming through the bulkhead the cable for everything else as well. So this is just running loose at the moment. So I'll sit in here. So I've made up a little bit of a sub loom for my wires. So I've got live for the VVT, live for the Arduino, and earth, and that branches off there. So VVT live, VVT switched to earth via the MOSFET. So we'll find a home for them across here as well. We've already got a cable coming across here with a couple of clamps there, so we can reuse those and tidy that up all together. So we're getting there slowly, but I think what I want to do next is get this mounted and see if I can get a signal off it and get that to set up tidy. No, I think actually before I do that, I think I will do something about this magnet. Bear with. Okay, so you see this is now off the car, and you sort of get a feeling for what's going on. See, I put a little exploratory hole there because my intention was, my first thought was to do it from underneath like so, but I ran out of space for me for my connector, and I think it'd be easier to do it this way and get a feel for it anyway. So that's my plan. And on the other side of that, then you can see where it'll just snug through and point up to the, effectively it will look like that. So it'll go snug up to the magnet. So, but I think before we do that, we should do something about stopping this magnet from wobbling around. Now, I am tempted just to simply super glue it in place, but I don't think that's going to be good enough. So what I'm thinking of doing, excuse me. So what I'm thinking of doing is 3D printing a ring that will fit snugly onto this and have a little cutout in it for this to fit into, and then super gluing that on the whole thing. So if I make a ring sort of about 30mm wide, then have this fitting nicely in that, then super glue the whole thing on there. That's lots of surface area then for it to keep it in place. I think that's what I will play with next. So this should be fairly straightforward enough. So if we measure that, like so, we are exactly 75mm as it happens, so that's handy. And I was thinking around 30, or maybe 30 is a bit too big, 20mm in for the ring width. If I can get there we go, that'll do it. Oh, camera. So if that'd be the ring width, then we've got our magnet itself, which is exactly 10mm. So what I'm going to do first is 3D print up a 75mm ring, and I just start the print off and then stop it to make sure we got the right size, because what I have learned with Tinkercad and my 3D printing is probably a setup issue somewhere. They are the measurements are very slightly one way or the other. Sometimes they're too small, sometimes they're too big. So what I've taken the habit of doing is printing off a little bit first and then going from there. And the print I'm using, the filament for this, is a carbon fibre infused PLA, which is nice and tough. Right, can I show you very quickly how this Tinkercad works? I have shown it before. We'll move that one out of the way. Grab a circle, drop it on there, make that 75. Smoothing it out a bit. So you can centralise this onto the ruler over there. Where's the other side gone? 0. Yeah, so that's now centraled over that ruler point, so we can now centralise this one. And we want the whole thing to be about 3mm in depth. I think that'll suit the magnet just about. So if we go 75 and 6, that's 81. So let's make these sizes 81. Drop that over our hole. That's what, there we go. So union them together. This is not a proper guide for this. You want to get a proper guide for Tinkercad, and no doubt there's plenty of options for that on YouTube. But it just gives you an idea of how easy it is. Just with a couple of minutes, I've basically made what I want to make. And the other thing we want to do is grab another hole and make this 10mm. Turn it over. And poke it through the side of there. Now we have a hole for the magnet. So that's as simple as that. So we'll, if I just select that one and export up there, make an STL file, open that into what's called a splicer, and this turns it into stuff that the 3D printer can understand. There we go. So this is in the splicer, and you can then mess around with all your settings in there, but these are already set for what I want for this mini SD card in there. There's probably a way of connecting this all up together properly, but I can't work it out. So slice that, and then we have our thing. So take it about an hour and a half to print that. Save that to our card. Pull that out. Stick that into a 3D printer. Like so. When that warms up, that will start printing. And off it goes, because we're up to temperature. There we go. See there, up to 200, which I got it filament set at. And off it goes. We're going to focus. There we go. For some reason it prints a thing up the side there, and I can't work out how to get rid of that. That's annoying. Just waste filament. I think it's like a nozzle clearing thing. And off it goes. So we'll leave that to a few runs. Then I'll stop this print and go check that against the size on the card to make sure we're where we want to be. If it's too big or too small, we can then adjust it very, very slightly. Right, that's probably as far as we need to go with that. So if we press on that and go to stop print, and just move that out of the way and peel that off of there, and we can take it to the garage. Surprise, surprise, it's raining again. Okay, so this is why we do this, because that's, according to the card and the printing software, is 75mm, but it's actually very slightly smaller. So what I will do is, it's not much in it, I can probably stretch that on there, but I don't really want to be stretching things because it'll only end up breaking. If I up that by a couple of millimeters and then try another one until we get what we want, because we want it to be a nice snug fit, of course, because the snugger it is the better. And then we'll take it, once we get that size right, we'll work out our size then for a magnet hole, make sure that's right, and then once we're happy with it all, we'll print it all up as one piece. Right, currently printing out a segment where the magnet's going to sit into, which is just that bit there, which I've taken a segment of that. I've also upsized this by 1mm either side, so it's now 82 by 82. So we'll see how that goes, but once this is printed enough, not too far off, I can then try the magnet in that little segment to see if that fits. Here's our little segment printed out, and that fits into there quite nicely. So we could, the other way around would be better. So we can glue that in there, and that coupled with the, this is only very, very thin on the back end of it, so that'll be a magnetic attachment of that as well to the wheel, so like so, so that'll all be held on nicely and stop it from wandering off. Okay, hole has been made and that fits snugly into there, so I've got a couple of choices here. I either use this to move it in and out on, or this end, and on the other side you can see it pokes through nicely, so it's just a matter of lining things up now to make sure they point closely enough to each other, not to touch but not so far apart that they don't register either. Right, got this fixed in position now, so put the magnet up against the wheel, push that up against it, and that's just about where it needs to be, and we can now give that little bit of movement backwards and forwards, and when we're happy with it we'll super glue that into place, so we know it'll stay there. Hopefully. It's all a bit of an experiment at the moment. We'll see how we get on with it. This may get reworked at some point in the future, but it's all a work in progress. Right, okay, is the other one printed, just 1mm bigger, so 0.5 millimeter on either side, and that now fits nice and snugly, which is just what we want. And to make sure, I've already had this fitting over all of it, so that's not fouling, so we've got plenty of clearance for that inside that little tuft there, little hole there. Tuft is a Welsh word, not that I speak Welsh. There we go, so that now fits on there nicely, so now I'm happy with that. I'll print a full one of those. And while I was waiting for that to print, I crimped on a connector on there and finish off the wiring just on this side up to the VVT focus, up to the actual VVT solenoid itself, and it just needs clipping in place for now. And got me live down there ready to go somewhere, and an earth there. There's my live gone, there it is. So there's my lives tied in together, ready to pick up this relay live here when we are ready. So right, let's print a full one of these and go for the next step. all printed out. I've put a little bit of tape on the back of that magnet to try and hold it in just a little bit better and just a little bit more flush, so that'll fit onto there very nicely, like so. So that's a nice snug fit, so I'll glue that in place, and then we'll see about the setting up the Hall effect sensor. That is now glued into place using this super glue and activator stuff. I found this works really well with 3D printed bits and bobs. The magnet is glued into place as well, and hopefully, given the surface area of all of that, that will stay in place. Time, of course, will tell. The other thing you might be wondering about is the timing of it. Should I have timed it? It doesn't really matter, as long as the Arduino can pick up a pulse once for every revolution, which you can then times by 2, considering that moves half crank speed. Then that's all we need to give us a there or thereabouts RPM signal, so we know when to turn the VVT on and off. Okay, so we've got this bolted in now. Time will tell whether that'll be secure enough. There is a little bit of movement in it, but we'll see what happens. So what I'm thinking of doing now is knocking up some sort of LED or something which I can pick up the Hall sensor, saves trying to connect everything else up all at once, and just running it and moving this in and out. That's tight up against that plastic wheel at the moment, so obviously don't want that, so just be a case of pulling it out probably about so much, so it'll still pick up the magnetic signal. Okie dokie, so I have cobbled up together a little sensor, sensor tester rather, for my Hall effect thing. So that's the actual Hall effect. So if I put a magnet near it, you can see the little LED comes on. Simples. So now we know that that setup is actually working, and that's still working. So the plan is now is to stick that back in there and then run the engine and see where we need to be with it. As you can see, it's already picking up a signal, so try and move this over to somewhere we can see both. Now if I pull that away from there a bit, you see we lose signal. Point it back in, you see where it starts picking up the signal. So that is probably just about perfect there. It's not scratching against the ring, and it's bringing the light on nicely. Happy days. We'll glue that in place. Lovely. Okay, that's glued in place. I'm going to leave that for a while now to set off nice and hard. Then take all this apart and glue from the other side as well, so that's nice and well and truly stuck into there. And just to be sure, that is now still picking up a nice signal there, so that should work nicely for us. Right, there we go. We are connected up. The Arduino is just sitting down there somewhere by itself, and that appears to be about right. Give it a little blip. That's looking promising, and I found a better home for it than there, just up underneath there. That fits quite nicely there and it's not obtrusive from this neck of the woods, so that's good. There we go, that's a lovely place for it. And time will tell whether that's going to work or not once you start road testing. So I'll 3D print up a new cover for that and then sort that out. Okay, so we've got our little display in a little 3D printed module. That was fitted further to the left, but it's getting in the way of the keys, so I've just moved over to the right. So when we turn the ignition on, you should get that little startup display, and then there we go. Lovely. Already thinking about making a different one using a little OLED screen. I think I'll play with that a fair bit more before I go, thinking I'll put that in the car and see if the other one works first. That's all up and running. Time will tell whether it's going to be any good or not. Probably should find a way of testing whether it's actually turning the VVT on and off or not, but I suppose the only real time we're going to know that is when road testing. I suppose when I get it on the road, I'll be able to take it up the road with it connected, take it up the road with it disconnected, and see if it feels any different. If it doesn't, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed the different video, couple of videos this time. It's been more about electronics and actual cars, so something different and something new. Yeah, see you in the next one. Please like and subscribe as usual.